Today is Thursday, December the 3rd, 2009. This is the start of an interview with Mr. Wallace Moore at the Macomb Catholic Services located at 15945 Canal Road, Clinton Township, Michigan. Mr. Moore is 91 years old. He was born the first day of September 1918. Mr. Moore currently resides at 3623 Dawn in Warren, Michigan. My name is Dave Brousseau. I will be the interviewer. Mr. Paul Willem will be the videographer. Mr. Moore, would you state for the record the branch of service that you served?
I first was drafted into the 32nd Infantry Division in March of 1941. I was in there long enough to find out that I didn't care for it, and I asked for a transfer to the Air Force, which went through, and I transferred into the Air Force. I was in machinist school in Illinois, learning to be an airplane machinist. But I see these planes coming and landing, and I kept thinking, somebody's got to fly them, why not me? So I applied for flying training, and I passed the exams, and I became a pilot.
Where did you train?
San Antonio, Texas was pre-flight school. Pine Bluff, Arkansas was my primary, the first, what is that plane you fly, the first one?
The trainers?
No, it's a plane. The training was in ground training we got in San Antonio, Texas. Pine Bluff, Arkansas is where I started to learn to fly a single engine plane. And then when I got through with that one, went to Coffeyville, Kansas, basic flying school, flying a little bigger plane, one single engine plane. When I got through there, I was sent to Pampa, Texas, to advanced flying school, where we flew AC-14, I think was the name of it, or 13, and the twin engine plane. Now I'm gonna get confused.
Why did you choose the multi-engine planes over the single?
I have no idea why that happened, but I was in the multi-planes learning, then went to Fort Worth, Texas, and learned to fly the B-24.
What was that like? Is that a lot different than the single engine?
Oh yeah, this is a 4-engine. This is a big bomber, a 4-engine bomber. That's when I learned to fly.
You remember what that was like? Learning how to do that?
Well, it's different than a single engine plane. It's different than a double engine plane or 2-engine plane. It's a little harder, and you land a little higher up off the ground. But it seemed to be no problem. I learned in a hurry.
Were you living at home at the time that you were drafted?
Yes.
Had you finished high school?
No, I only went through sophomore grade. In order to become a pilot, I had to take the GED examination, and I passed it.
Why did they take you so early?
They needed pilots.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your boot camp experiences?
Well, there was nothing nothing bad, except in a twin engine plane when I landed one night, flying at night without lights, you know, we had to fly without lights. The only lights you saw were the lights on the boundary of the runway. And all of a sudden I crashed. And didn't hurt myself, tore the wheels off the plane. Come to find out, they had a contractor grading the land, and he piled the dirt right in line with the runway. You didn't see that at night, and I hit that trying to land. But that's the only time I had any accidents in a plane.
Do you remember any of your instructors during your boot training?
I had my primary trainer at Pine Bluff, Arkansas. His name was Lindbergh. He had the name Lindbergh, last name. But he was not related with Lindbergh, the pilot that flew around the world.
What was he like?
Real good, real nice fellow, big too.
Any interesting experiences that you went through other than your crash?
No, I had no problem. Everything turned out all right. I seemed to be able to handle everything that they wanted me to do.
How long did it take you to go through the basic flying training?
Not very long. All that training took about 9 months at the most. I became a pilot 27th day of July 1943. That 43G. G is a alphabetic for July.
Mm-hmm.
And my ring shows 43G.
When were you then shipped overseas?
First was in Arizona. First we went to Salt Lake City, to a area, a place where they get the different members of a crew in there, and then they crew you as a crew, and then they send you down to Tucson, Arizona to start flying and bombing, dropping bombs, learn how to fly bombs. So we got together as a crew in Salt Lake City, and then went down to Tucson, and we practiced bombing in the desert. I'm trying to remember where we organized the group. I should have thought of all this stuff before. I didn't know you were going to ask all these questions.
How many were in your crew?
10 of us all together.
10 of us.
Yeah.
Okay. And the basic positions or crew positions were what? Pilot, co-pilot, navigator,
Engineer,
engineer.
bombardier, waist gunners too, one on each side of the plane, a nose gunner and a tail gunner, and then a ball gunner underneath and a gunner on top. The engineer operated the gunner at the top.
And as the captain of the plane, you were the pilot. You were
Pilot, yeah.
you were the head honcho, huh?
Yep. And when I went overseas, you want me to go any further? When I went overseas, we flew down through Puerto Rico, Trinidad, Argentina, then across to Africa as a group, to Morocco, and then to Tunisia. We spent a month in Tunisia while they got our field ready for us in Italy. When they finally got the field ready, in the meantime, while we were in Tunisia, we went to these salvage dumps and built ourselves some motorcycles. I had one put together, and I rode it all over Tunisia. And then when it was time for us to go into Italy, the colonel got us all on the side of a hill there, and he says, well, they got our field ready, we're gonna go into Italy and start operating. And he says, I'm sure some of you people are concerned about what you're gonna do with those motorcycles you built. He says, hang them up in the bomb bay, we'll take them with us. Oh, that was good to us, that sounded real good. So we took them into Italy, and just below, between Foggia and Bari, Italy. And that's where we started operating, flying from there. I was a co-pilot. The pilot of the plane was Larry Groudon. He was a Texan. After the second mission, he was nervous guy. And all of a sudden, there's no Larry Groudon around. Something happened to him, and they shipped him out, shipped him back home. I flew as a pilot then, and whenever we got new crews in, every time we got a new crew in, on the mission we'd go, I'd have the pilot fly as my co-pilot. This is the way we tested them to see if they were worth taking a plane, in control of a plane. But some of them would get so scared they'd be laying on the floor, so afraid. So you had to turn them in. So that's what I did. My flying was done training these other pilots, except every fifth mission, there was 5 squadrons, 5 groups, 5 squadrons in the group. The colonel, the head of the group, and then you got a colonel at the head of each squadron. And the colonel of my squadron, since there's one and five colonels, every fifth mission he's got to lead the group on the bombing run. So whenever he led the group, I was his co-pilot. He took my crew, me and my crew. And so that's the way I finished my tour, by breaking in these new pilots and co-pilots, at the same time flying with the colonel whenever he led the group.
Any experiences on those trips, bombing runs, that are worth note?
Well, we dropped a lot of bombs in Ploesti. That was our main target. I made nine bombing missions at Ploesti. Then
Where is that?
That's in Romania. That's where the oil fields were for the Germans. And that was the longest flights we had.
How far was that?
I don't know how far, but it would take us about 10 hours for the round trip, 10, 12. Same thing up north, we flying past Germany, we went into southern Poland and dropped some bombs in some places.
Were they still making these runs without any fighter support?
Oh, we had fighter support.
What
Oh, yeah.
what fighters were you getting support from?
P-38s,
No, not P-38s,
the Lockheed Lightnings.
P-40s and P-39s. Yeah, they would lead us part way, then another group would meet us a little further. So we had support, but it was never enough, because you see when we get over the target area, the anti-aircraft, no matter what you did, they were gonna get you. Because they'd have a plane flying up to find out how high we are, at what altitude we're flying. And they'd radio that down to the ground, and they would set their bombs, explosives to explode at that altitude. So they were pretty accurate. Fortunately, I wasn't hit.
How many planes would go up with your mission?
Oh, each squadron would probably have 5 or 6.
That's all?
Well, no, there'd be 4 squadrons, that'd be 24 planes. So we'd have at least 24 planes up there at one time.
How old were you at that time?
Well,
25, 26?
25, 24, 25, yeah.
How did you feel about those missions? Were you scared?
Well, I wasn't the bravest type, you know, what the heck, but it's something had to be done, and I just accepted the fact that this is it. This is what I gotta do, and I was doing it. And apparently the colonel had a good word for me somehow, because look, when I got back from overseas duty, I was stationed at, it's now Wayne County Airport. It used to be a Romulus Air Force Base. And I delivered planes to Australia. I learned to fly the B-17, and when one crew was going over to England, and in Bangor, Maine, the pilot was out ice skating and he broke his ankle. So they sent me over there to take the crew and the plane and fly it into England. So I went into England, Valley, Wales. And I remember before that happened, my brother was in the service, and I went to see him in Kansas. And then when my turn came to come home, I happened to walk into the mess hall or the bar at the airport there in Valley, Wales, and I see one of the guys that I'd met when I was visiting my brother in Kansas. And I says, "Hey, where's my brother?" He said, "He's coming. They're being shipped in." So I went down on the field, and I was meeting every plane coming in, seeing with my brother coming in, and then I seen the plane coming in that I was going to get on, transport plane, and I got in the plane and we landed in Prestwick, Scotland, and I went into the whatever you call it at the field. And I was sitting in there with a couple of 8th Air Force guys having a drink, and over the PA system they got announcing, "Lieutenant Wallace Moore, you're wanted at the desk." "Lieutenant Wallace Moore, you're wanted at the desk." I says, "How about that? Somebody has the same name as I do." After they kept paging, the guy says, "Hey, that must be for you." It was. My brother was calling me from where I just left from Valley, Wales. So then to get to the end of this, they called me in Romulus, and there was 5 crews set up. And they flew us down to Memphis, Tennessee. In Memphis, Tennessee, they equipped me with a C-54, 4-engine transport. And Then I got a pilot who was a grade higher than me. He was my co-pilot, and I never met the guy before. So I didn't know if he could fly the plane or not. So anyway, my orders came, take off, go to Alamogordo, New Mexico. I landed in Alamogordo in a storm where I was afraid of hitting the mountains, so I spiraled down till I could see the runway. And I landed. My orders came direct from Washington. I'd have to be ready to get on the runway with the plane before they told me where I was going. So I'm ready to get on the runway, and they tell me, you're going to Hamilton Field in San Francisco. So I fly to Hamilton Field, San Francisco, and I land there. A day or two later, tell me, now you're going, get ready to fly. I get it out, all ready at the runway, and they say, you're going to Johnson Island. I fly to Johnson Island. The same thing happens after a day or so. Actually, it probably wasn't even a day. You're leaving, you're going to Guadalcanal. I think that's the right one, in the middle of the Pacific. I land in Guadalcanal, and I'm there for a day. Next day, line up, you're going to Guam. So I fly into Guam, and I think I spent 4 days in Guam. In the 3 days I was there was nothing said. On the 4th day, when I'm supposed to be leaving, they were betting that the war would be over in 2 weeks. Why? I don't know. My orders were to fly to Manila, the Philippine Islands. I flew to Manila. I was in Manila a couple of days. Then the last time I got orders was to go to Calcutta, India. So I left Manila, went to Calcutta, India. I stayed there for maybe 1 day or 2 days. And then I left there. I was on my own now. No more government orders. I flew to Karachi, which is now Pakistan. It was India then. To Karachi. The next day I flew out of Karachi to Iran. Then from Iran to Cairo, Egypt. And I was in the Shepherd's Hotel with the whole crew. And we were in there for just about 5 days. And I went downstairs to get a newspaper, and the headlines on the newspaper, atom bomb dropped on Japan. I got the crew together and I said, let's get out of here before they turn us around and send us back. So we left Cairo, flew to Morocco, from Morocco to the Azores, from the Azores to Newfoundland, from Newfoundland to Bradley Field, Connecticut, from Bradley Field, Connecticut to Romulus Air Force Base, back home.
Now this is all on your own.
Yep, all around the world that trip. That took me all the way around the world.
What were you flying?
C-54.
C-54?
4-engine C-54.
And what was the purpose of these various stops? There was nothing in particular?
Nothing in particular. To this day, I believe that I took the igniters for the atom bomb into Guam. And many times I thought, I'll contact Sander Levin or and see if he can find out, since he's military and he's in the military part of the Congress. But I never did. But I believe that I took the igniter for the atom bomb into Guam. That's why it was such a secretive mission. I wasn't aware of it at the time. I just flew because that's what they wanted me to do.
But there was some cargo in your plane that you didn't know what
Yeah,
it
but
was.
I never checked the cargo to see what's in there. Excuse me, I didn't know if they even had the bomb in there. You don't know.
Well, at that time, you didn't even know about the bomb.
That I think they delivered the bomb to Guam by boat.
Indianapolis.
Hmm?
Indianapolis was the boat.
Was
The
it?
USS Indianapolis, yeah.
But I believe I took in the igniter because, like I say, I've been gone 3 days and nothing was said about it. And on the day that I was getting ready to leave, they were betting that the war would be over in 2 weeks, and didn't say why. And they were right. It was over in 2 weeks.
What group were you with? You're flying a cargo plane in a war zone. I mean, isn't that a little dangerous?
Well, where's the war zone?
Guam,
Yeah, that would be, but we had control of Guam, so.
okay.
And Manila, we had control of Manila at that time.
Was it just your plane, or did you have other planes with you at that time?
No, I was alone. I didn't have no escorts or anything. I had a good navigator. He knew exactly where we were going.
When you say you flew on your own, you mean you were the captain and you flew where you wanted to go?
Yeah.
Oh. Can I ask one? When you were bombing in Italy, were there ever any German aircraft after you? Were there dogfights?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Were you shot at?
We would be escorted by our planes, P-40s, P-38s, and the Germans were there to get after. They were trying to get after us, the bombers, you know, and the fighter planes were protecting us until we got close to the targets where the anti-aircraft fire was. Then the pursuit planes left us. They stayed away because they didn't want to get hit.
Did your gunners on your bomber shoot? Were they firing at the enemy?
Oh yeah, oh yes.
But you never got hit.
Oh, we might have been hit in different parts of the plane. I don't know, but it was never hit to the extent that it disabled the plane in any way or disabled an engine. I lost one engine over a bombing trip in southern Poland, and on the way home, the engineer says, "We're going to run out of gas. This is transfer the gas from the engine that's not running into the other tanks." So he transferred the gas, and I says, "Well, I'll fly over the shoreline of Italy from in case the engines quit, we can get out over Italy over land instead of water." Well, it worked all right. I landed the plane, and I was having dinner when the ground engineer come up to me and he says, "How'd you fly that plane home?" I says, "No problem, 3 engines." He says, "We put 2,750 gallons of gas in that plane, and that's the complete amount of gas that the tanks hold." He says, "Your tanks were empty." I didn't know that, but the engine still ran, you know. So I probably was running out of gas right then. But somebody up there looked after me.
you had no gas gauges per se. You would measure what you had
Well-
and then how many miles you had to fly.
I don't remember any gas gauges on the instrument panel.
Right.
The engineer had
Would
them.
calculate.
Yeah, the engineer had the gas gauges. He knew. But when he told me that he put 2,750 gallons to refill that in tanks, he says, how did you fly that plane back home without gas? But there had to be some gas or I wouldn't have never made it.
Would the loss of one engine have saved gas, or would it have been more of a strain on the plane?
It's more of a strain on the plane then.
So you would have used more
Yeah.
gas, actually.
Yeah,
Well, 3 engines would use more than they would normally,
yeah.
but
They gotta work a little harder to
Yeah.
take the place to the one that's not working.
But those planes were really overbuilt.
I don't know what you'd call overbuilt.
They were bigger, they were heavier than was really required.
Well, maybe that's why they didn't carry as many bombs, I guess.
They're heavily armored, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of armor on them. But I'd flown into southern France, and I don't remember what the purpose of the flight was. From Italy, and I was attacked by a German plane, and he come right at me. And the co-pilot squatted down, and he's lucky he squatted, because the bullets went right through the right side of the windshield. It would have hit him if it had been setting up. So I got through all right there.
What altitude were you bombing from?
Well, we had B-17 groups and B-24 groups, and I don't know what the setup was. I think we had 6 groups of B-24s and about 13 groups of B-17s. Well, we would be flying at 22,000 feet, or 20,000 feet. And the B-17 was able to fly higher. They'd be up 3,000 feet higher than us when they're dropping their bombs. We didn't like that. But they could fly higher, but we could carry more bombs.
The 24s?
Yeah.
How far up does the anti-aircraft go?
Right at your level.
No, I mean, would they get up as far as 25,000?
The pursuit planes?
No, the anti-aircraft, could they shoot that high?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. They knew exactly what altitude we were at, and the explosions were at our level. I see planes explode. I see parachutes in the air. Knocked on wood, you know. They missed me.
You couldn't fly higher than what the
No,
anti-aircraft.
no, we flew as a group, everybody in position.
And you never lost a crew member.
No.
God bless you.
How many bombing runs did you do?
We were credited with 2 for 1 sometimes, because like Ploesti was 2, we get 2. Whereas the 8th Air Force flew 30 missions. Well, we were flying 50, but some of ours we were credited 2 missions for each one.
Why?
The tougher ones we got 2 credits for it.
tougher in what respect?
Anti-aircraft, air opposition. But ours total was 50. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, 50 missions. And I made them all. I took the whole crew back home. We all went back home together.
Now, how long did it take you to complete this 50 missions?
It's something I never tried to remember, you know. It's,
Were you doing 1 or 2 missions a week, or?
oh yeah, sometimes we'd fly every other day. Sometimes every day. Depending on how many planes were available that were not damaged, you know.
Where was your airfield at that time you were flying those raids to Ploesti?
It was halfway between Foggia, which is in the center of Italy, and Bari, which is on the Adriatic coast.
So you were basically on the east coast of the boot of Italy?
No.
Yeah, we were operating out of Italy.
Okay.
Yeah, they put in runways for us to fly out of Italy in a valley. There was no field there before. Well, they were building that field while we were in Tunisia. I took a ride down southern Tunisia with another guy. And when I got down there, and I don't remember the name of the town no more, but when you get down there, these people looking at you. I says, let's get the hell out of here. I don't like the looks on their eyes.
What was your rank while you were flying?
I flew as a second lieutenant and then I was promoted to first lieutenant, and I finished up as a first lieutenant.
So when you flew that hush-hush mission into the Pacific, you were a first lieutenant then?
Yeah.
Now, at any time that you were doing that mission, going to Johnson Island, do you think that's where you picked up that particular cargo?
Could be, I don't know, maybe that's why I landed there, because there was no reason why I couldn't go from Honolulu to, not Alamogordo, Guadalcanal. It's not that big a distance difference. But I had to go from Oahu to Johnson Island, and I think that's where they reloaded the plane with whatever I was delivering. So I wanted to get with Sander Levin or Carl Levin and see if they could check the military records and see if I was involved in that. But I never did talk to him.
Do you remember the tail number of your aircraft then?
No, not no more. No way. We didn't fly the same plane all the time, you know, in Italy. You flew which one was in good shape to fly.
I mean the one that you took to Johnson Island.
No, I don't remember it. It was a C-54. And it was a brand new plane. I picked it in Memphis, Tennessee.
Do you remember the name on the plane?
I don't think that, it was so new that nobody put a name on it yet. Why would they put a name on it? I know in Italy, there was a lot of painting going on, names and everything, you know, on the planes. But I never went for that.
Never bombed any Japanese targets, or it was all German targets?
Oh yeah, all targets in Europe.
Did you lose were a lot of bombers and fighter planes lost?
Oh yeah, you could see them going down. You could see the bombers exploding when they were hit by an aircraft.
So you were very lucky.
You bet I was.
If you went out with a crew of maybe, a group of maybe 20 to 24, how many would come back typically?
I don't have no idea. I never counted or anything. This is something we didn't worry about. You were just thankful that you made it yourself, you know.
When you got back, did you notice the damage on your own plane?
You'd look, but it's hard to see, you know. Bullets make holes, and you can't see them.
I've just seen some of them returning from some of those missions where elevators and part of the tail is ripped off and,
Well, that's from the anti-aircraft.
yeah.
I don't remember ever having anything like that done on the plane I was flying. I was fortunate. One of the fortunate.
Did you make any lasting friendships during those missions?
Well, I had my crew, and then I lost track of where they were, and I tried to contact a few of them, but you know, people move. And they don't leave forwarding addresses or anything like that. So I lost contact, and then I lost my book with the addresses and names in it. I found it here a few weeks ago in all my garbage.
But you remember everybody's name though, on your crew?
Not really. Not really. Mezapel was the ball gunner. Kaltz was the tail gunner. No, I have trouble remembering them.
Who was your co-pilot?
I had a new co-pilot every time I went up.
Really?
Yeah, I was, the new crews coming in from the United States, they'd send either the pilot or the co-pilot with me and they'd break their crew up when they came into England. They'd break them up, this gunner with this crew, this gunner with this crew, you know, and everybody was around to get used to this system over there. So I always had a new co-pilot, and it was always either a pilot of the crew that came over or the co-pilot of the crew. So we were losing so many crews, so there was always more crews coming in. So I never knew who I was gonna have.
Did you go home right after the war? Or did you stay?
No, I got out as soon as I could get out.
So you weren't married while you were in the...
I got married September 7th, 1940.
Oh, you were married?
6 days after I had my birthday, we got married. And we've been married ever since. 69 years, her and I.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Congratulations.
Well, it must
Her
have been-
birthday's on the 16th of this month.
Wow.
She'll be 90.
You're kidding.
So all the time that you were in Italy, she was home.
Yep.
You married her so no one else could marry her before you went
Oh,
in,
yeah,
right?
Was this a high school sweetheart?
No. I met her at her mother was cooking a dinner. The party it was a wedding dinner. And the woman that was getting married was from Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I came to Detroit in 1937. And my sister Helen knew this girl, and she was getting married in Detroit, and so I was invited to the wedding. And that's where I met her. She was working with her mother.
Where did you get married at?
What was the name of that town we got married in Ohio?
Napoleon, wasn't it?
What?
Napoleon?
Something like that, yeah. We got married in Ohio. We ran away and got married.
Now, this was just before you went in, or a year
Well,
or so before?
I had no idea that I was gonna go in, you know. That was in September, and then in March is when I was drafted, the following year. I was drafted in 1942. And in 43, I transferred to the Air Force. And like I say, I flew all over the world. I did everything for the Air Force that they asked me to do.
Was that the Army Air Force at that time?
Yes, with the United States Army Air Force.
I had heard that the bombing raids were the most dangerous missions there were.
That I don't know. All I know is I went through them. I did it.
Your wife must have been, you guys keep in touch with them by mail, and was the mail good?
Did you ride home every single day?
No. I was not one of the type of guys that's gonna ride every day. I had other things I wanted to do. We had a pretty good field. It was new, and it was in a valley, and we lived on the side of the hill. It was a pretty good place.
Have you been back to Italy since then?
Nope. I'm gonna stay home.
You did your round the world tour, huh?
I think I've been to Canada once or twice. That's it. That's the only place I've ever gone.
What about the rest of your family during the war? Were you in touch with them? You mentioned your brother. Did you have other family members fighting?
How big was your family? You, your brother,
I had two brothers. And in between the two brothers were three sisters.
were they in the service also?
No, just my one brother. They were all too young then, you know. No, this is after the war. No, nobody, none of them. Waller wasn't in, neither was, Mickey. Neither one of them was in the service. Neither one of my sons was in the service.
Are they aware of your war experience?
I guess so. I've talked about it a few times. You know, you got grandchildren, they'll like to know, you know, so you tell them. And with the spread in the ages of the children, like Donna was born in 45, right after I got home. We were real quick to get a daughter. And then 11 months and 1 week later, a son was born. And then like 4 or 5 years later, a daughter. 4 or 5 years after that, another daughter. So we just kind of spread them out. So that there's a real big spread in all of them now. Yeah, we had 3 daughters and 2 sons.
And you said one is in Florida,
Yeah,
the rest are local here?
yep. Yep, my oldest boy is in Florida. He had a business over on DeQuinder, just below 14 Mile Road, and a machine shop. And his wife's parents had moved to Florida, and they were old and a little bit on the sickly edge, you know. So his wife bugged him. She wanted to go to Florida so she could take care of her parents. So he sold the business here. He sold all the machines and everything he had here, and he was planning on being retired. He got down to Florida, and he wasn't down there 6 months when he started getting the urge to go back in business, and he did. He went into the machine shop business there, and he still got the business. So he's got a couple more years before he retires. At 65.
Did
What-
you,
What did you do when you came back from the war?
What's that?
What did you do when you got out of the Army, out of the Air Force?
Oh, I went to work for Chrysler Corporation as a machinist, electrician. And I went into management in Chrysler. And I was a general foreman when I retired. And I retired at the age of 58. I got tired of it. I put in my 30 years with Chrysler and I said, that's it. So actually I put in 30 years and 6 months.
and you never flew again after the military?
No, I asked, applied to Delta Airlines, and if I went to work for Delta, I'd have had to move. And that's something we didn't want to do. So I tried a few others, and the same thing was happening. They needed pilots somewhere else, not here. So I said, nah, I gave it up. I just lost my desire to fly anymore. That's been all my life. I've been, try this, and when you finally do it, try something else. When you finally do it, try something else. So I've been doing that all my life. Except getting married. I got married once and that's it.
Good answer.
I hit gold when I married her, so that was it.
Good answer.
Yeah, I didn't need any more.
You have a golden tongue.
Well, she's
Well said, well said.
been a terrific woman. Terrific mother. Them kids think that the sun rises and sets on her.
What was it like for your parents while you were gone?
I was in the infantry. We were in maneuvers in the southwestern Louisiana, and we had a USO show out there. And we were out in the field in the show, and over the PA system, they called me. I went up to the stage, and a Red Cross man met me there, and a chaplain met me. And it says, your father passed away. And this is 100 or so miles away from Alexandria, where we were in maneuvers. So they asked me, you got clothes to go home on? I said, no. I said, I'm gonna have to borrow clothes. So I borrowed clothes from a cook. And the American Red Cross paid my way. They paid my round trip home. I got home at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I buried my dad at 9. And he was a coal miner. I was born and raised in the coal mines of Pennsylvania, Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania, which is halfway between Harrisburg and Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. And my dad died from black lung, miner's disease, at 53 years old. Here I'm living twice as long as him, almost. So I tried coal mining. We were doing this mining. You go up on the mountain and dig a hole and start mining. I tried it for about 6 months and I didn't like it. And then they had the CCC camps, the Civilian Conservation Corps. And I'm pretty sure I went through 2 6-month terms and maybe a third one. And when I got out of there, that's when I started in the coal mines. And I spent a few months in the coal mines and I didn't like it. And one day, one of our relatives, that wasn't a close relative, but it was a relative, was leaving Mount Carmel and coming to Detroit. And when I decided that I didn't want to stay in the coal mining area, I sent them a letter asking if they could put me up while I'd come there to live in Detroit, you know, till I found a place and got a job. So actually it was a policeman, my father's buddy back home in Pennsylvania. He was a policeman. And he transferred up to Detroit. And no, I don't have any room. But he talked to his sister, and his sister sent a letter, says, send Wallace out. So I left Mount Carmel and I went to Detroit. I come to Detroit and I went to work for Swedish Crucible Steel. And after I got settled in a rooming house right next to where my people that I lived with, this home was right next to a rooming house. So I had a room in there. Well, then I sent for my one brother, Walter was his name, and he came to Detroit. And I put him up until he got a job and got settled. Then I got my youngest brother come. I financed his way to come up to Detroit. So I brought all the two brothers and myself, you know, up to Detroit. And my brother Walter became a policeman in Detroit. And he retired as a policeman in the Detroit Police Department. My younger brother, he worked for, I can't remember the name of the company no more. But he lost one leg, and today he's in a wheelchair. But he says, Wally, he says, you won't find many people that have 3 sons that are all past 85 and still living. The 3 of us are still living, 3 brothers. We had 2 sisters. Helen was my older sister. Then there was the 3 of us brothers, and then the youngest one was Jean, Eugene's sister. Both of those have passed away already. They're gone quite a while already. So I'm still kicking. We're still kicking, my 2 brothers and me.
How did you get a commission in the service without a degree?
All I had to do was pass that GED test, and that qualified me to be a pilot. And as a pilot, you get a commission.
When you came out, did you have a chance to go to college on the GI Bill?
Probably, but I wasn't feeling like I wanted to go any further in school. You know, you can think about it now and say, you darn fool, you should have done it, you know? But it's too late now.
A lot of people didn't, and a lot of people made out just fine.
Yeah,
It's all in what you want to do. It was an available benefit.
it probably
A
was,
lot of
yeah.
people took advantage of it. Some finished, some didn't.
Yeah. I just was satisfied to take care of my wife. We had in the first 2 years, we had the 2 kids. That's something, you know. That loads you down right away. But we ended up with 5 children, and she did a wonderful job bringing them up. All of them turned out good, none of them got into trouble.
Well, those had to have been boom days in Detroit for the automobile industry after the war.
Yeah,
They started making cars again.
yeah, I ended up as an electrician at Chrysler Corporation, and I happened to be pretty good in electrical work. And where they had some problems with some machinery, I solved them for them. So they promoted me as a foreman. I became a foreman. And then I must have been doing some good work for them because they promoted me to general foreman. And I was a general foreman when I retired.
What plant did you retire from?
Axle plant, Lynch Road. Between Van Dyke and Mount Elliott. Chrysler Axle Plant. It had another name.
That's right there, Huber Foundry and
Yep,
Eldon Avenue.
that's the one, Eldon Avenue Axle Plant. Eldon Avenue Axle Plant, that's
Lynch?
where I worked.
Lynch Road.
Yep, that's on Lynch Road, right across the street from, used to be a Packard plant.
So you never really kept any friendship after the service when you got home?
No, they were all older than me. No, I figured, now the day is trying to get in contact with them now, because they're probably gone, buried.
When you were in boot training, did you have any choice of whether you went to Germany or whether you went to the West Coast to fight?
No, no. They put you together, they send the pilot and navigators, engineers to Salt Lake City, the place. And there they get you together as a crew. And then they sent me down to Texas, to Arizona, Tucson, to start bombing runs, missions. And that's where we learned how to drop bombs, The bombardier learned how to set his bomb sights up and everything. So then we organized a group and we flew as a group down through, we took our own planes and flew down through the into South America, in the Buenos Aires area, and then across to Africa, and I just said it earlier, that Morocco and to Tunisia, and we were in Tunisia for a month.
Did you have a chance to come home while you were in the service?
No, I was on the move so much that I didn't have much of a chance to come home. She came when I became a pilot. I got pictures of that. So there wasn't much contact, personal contact, at that. I know the toughest targets we had was the Ploesti oil fields. That was where and the aircraft was vicious. Knock on wood, I made it.
You remember that clearly?
Oh yeah, you can't forget that stuff. You're flying along, and you're watching, and all of a sudden you see a plane blow up. You see you're playing cards tonight, you go on a bombing run mission tomorrow, and the guys you played cards with is not there no more. Plane blew up and they're gone.
Were these all daytime runs, or did you bomb at night?
No, they're all daytime runs. We would leave early in the morning, just as daylight. We'd take off in daylight, and we'd land in daylight. No bombing at night.
So you got into service around 1943 and then you
42,
42 and then you didn't get out until the war was over
right,
in Europe.
yep,
Did you get any service medals?
Distinguished Flying Cross. Not, I don't, that's about it.
What is that given for?
Flying, doing a good job of flying, I guess. Distinguished Flying Cross. I didn't do anything exceptional, except like I say, that I had a colonel as a flying, you know, with me, and he must have put some good word in for me, that's why I got that trip to Guam, and I believe I took that in, and he probably says that if you want a pilot that you can trust, that's me, you know. So he probably did that. I think so. I'm just thinking, you know, in my mind, I said, how else would they know to give me any job like that, you know?
How many campaign ribbons did you get?
That I don't remember no more. They never appeared to be very much. I see these generals and colonels and all, you know, with all those medals on them. I said, what the heck are they doing? But they all do it. They like to advertise. I never did it.
So were you discharged right at the point that the war ended? Or was it sometime after that?
It was after that. I left the service at a Romulus Air Force Base, which is now Wayne County Airport. I was released there. And I think I got a couple of dollars travel time to go home.
Really?
It's so close to home. I lived in Detroit.
What was the date that you were separated?
I'd have to look that up and see if I can find it.
It says September 5th, 45 on here.
I can't remember. You're trying to go back that many years, you know, it's, and I never tried to put everything together, you know, for this type. If I would have thought about something like this, well, then I might have done it, you know. But it didn't do it. How many times they told me, Wally, write a book of your experience as you were growing up and all. And I said, yeah. Now I'm in a bad situation. I lost my left eye, so I've only got vision in my right eye, and it's not good enough that I don't drive. There's my driver. My wife's my driver.
Any of your children or grandchildren like to write?
Beg pardon?
Any of your children or grandchildren like to write? Would like to write your story?
That I don't know. Probably could.
The bombing missions, you said, was that pretty standard that you would have to do 50 bombing missions
Yeah,
before you could get out?
that's right.
So that's 4 or 6 months or so?
It took like something like 9 months, I
9?
think. Yeah. When I was released, I felt that I flew over the ocean, but I never went over the ocean in a boat. So I selected that I didn't want to fly back. I could have gone by military air, you know, back. I said, no, I want to go home by boat. So I moved to Naples, Florida. And I was in Naples, Florida for about a month, waiting for a boat to come home. And finally one came in, it was a Brazilian boat that was damaged and it was going back to the United States for repairs. It was fairly new ship. So while I was in Naples,
Italy.
Naples, Italy, and right out of Naples in the sea is the Isle of Capri. And the Isle of Capri has a cave in it, and it's, what's the name of that now?
Blue Grotto.
Blue Grotto. The Blue Grotto. And my ball gunner was an Italian, so he got to know an Italian on Naples, and he got the Italians. We want to go see the Blue Grotto. He fixed it for us. So you get out into a boat, and that boat, there's a cable going from a cave opening, and he watches the tide as it goes up and down, you know. And when it gets up to the top, he starts pulling on that cable. And just about the time you get to the opening, the level of water is low, and you go right through into there. And in there's a big, immense opening in there in the cave, and it's all blue, beautiful sight. So we stay in there for a little while, you know, and then pretty soon out you go the same way, you know, pull in my cable. But the Italian, he knows how to do it, you know, and he's got the good timing. So I saw the Blue Grotto, and I stayed on the Isle of Capri, and we had a dinner with one of the homes on the top of the Isle of Capri. It's another name, Capri. And the Italian ball gunner I had, his buddy that he met over there, took us to this one home, and we went in to have a dinner. And while we were sitting down getting ready to eat, in walks the husband of the woman that was doing the cooking. And he got to talking to us. He said, "What are you doing here?" He says he was in Massachusetts or Connecticut in the East Coast, and he went home to visit his parents, and Mussolini wouldn't let him come back. So he was stuck in Italy. So we had a good meal there then. So that's the sights I saw, the Blue Grotto, the cave, beautiful sight. It's a tourist site, you know, a lot of tourists like to see it.
So what'd you come home in, a big troop transport like?
Well, I was right here at Wayne County Airport.
No, when you came back, you said you wanted to come back by boat.
I came back by boat.
What kind of boat?
Big freighter. There was, I don't know, no, that wasn't a freighter, it was a different type. Well, it was a boat anyway, a big enough boat. And it went into Virginia. It had damage, crack in the frame, and it pulled into Virginia in the evening. And in the morning when I got up, the boat was out of the water. It gone into one of those where they pump the water out and the boat's in dry land.
Dry dock.
Yeah, dry dock. And that's where they repair it.
Do you have some pictures you want to show us in your book?
The only picture I see is in here is my picture and the guys that I was in this is all the guys that I was in the class of 43G, graduates.
Center right. On the right, far right.
Can you see that?
You want me to hold it?
Okay, and which one are you?
You're far right.
Okay, far right. The tall gentleman.
Just down a little bit.
Yeah.
You got Wallace. Now, scan down.
So that was your crew?
No, that was my class, graduating class.
Notice that there was another Moore in your class too.
Yeah, I didn't know him. You don't have time, you know, you gotta study and you're flying and studying, you're going to school. You go to school 5 hours a day while you're flying, you're learning to fly. So you're pretty busy all the time.
I don't think that's changed anything at all.
Probably not.
I think the routine for pilot training is probably even more comprehensive.
It's a little more complicated now. Yeah. One of these, Miller, George Morris, he was one of my buddies. George Morris. I don't know if he's still alive or dead. Like I say, with me being 91 years old, and all of the crew was older than me. So I'm sure they're gone already.
Anything else you'd like to tell us about your,
No, I'm done. 15 minutes is up. He told me 15 minutes.
and you told me you didn't have anything to say.
That's an hour ago. Well, did I have much to say? I'd like to know if you guys can somehow contact our Carl Levin or our congressmen, the two congressmen, or else
Sandy Levin?
Sander Levin.
You know, we'll do that because we actually got a call from Carl Levin's office a couple of weeks ago asking if there was anything that they could do for our project. And I'm going to tell Sue that,
You
ask
do-
if they can,
you tell him.
find out,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's probably fine, they should be in the military records. If I had anything to do with it, this is something I don't know and I'd like to know it before I
Okay.
pass away.
We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do on that.
If you find out, let me know.
I certainly will.
Yeah.
It was funny you should say